to my channel. It's Eponine, aka Epi. Today I am coming at you with another missing persons video, only today's video is actually a happy one. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys and get a little bit of positive content on this channel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the story of Casey Hathaway. So on Tuesday, January 22nd of 2019, so just a couple of days ago, a 3-year-old boy named Casey Hathaway was playing in his grandparents' backyard with some other friends. Now, his grandparents lived in a town called Ernle in Craven County, North Carolina. Now, everything was normal. It was not uncommon for them to be playing in the backyard. Only things started to become a little less normal when all of the kids came inside except for Casey. At this point, the grandparents went outside and they started looking for him. They were searching all around and they frantically started looking for about 45 minutes until they realized that Casey was nowhere to be found. They had no idea where he was and he had wandered off and was lost. He was a missing child at this point. So at this point, the grandparents called 911 and reported him missing.
Okay, and what's going on there?
We lost my 2-year-old grandson that's walked in the woods back there and we can't find him. 3-year-old grandson.
Okay, so who's there with them?
His little sister.
You said his 3-year-old?
Yeah, he's 3.
Okay.
The girls come to the house and left him there, and he's walked off somewhere, and we can't find him.
Okay, but you're not there at the house now?
I'm at the house, yeah.
Okay, and how long ago do you know he walked in there?
It's been at least 45 minutes, because we've been looking all in the woods for him.
And it's behind your house? Is it directly behind your house?
Yeah. Well, on the side, yeah.
Is he a white, black?
He's white.
Do you know what he was wearing?
Probably a black little coat.
A black coat?
Yeah.
Okay. Does he usually do this? Does he usually do this?
No.
Was he wearing pants?
Yeah, he had pants.
Was it jeans?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. You said about 45 minutes to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Is it a big area of woods behind your house?
Yeah, it's pretty big.
I think you've been out there looking for him?
Yes.
What is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, we got a deputy headed to you, okay? You said 45 minutes directly behind your house or side?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, if you see a list that we have some deputies headed that way, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, the search and rescue team was sent out to the property of Casey Hathaway's grandparents. And they started a very intense search and rescue mission at this point in time. They had helicopters, they had drones, they had search dogs, there were hundreds of volunteers. Anybody that they could get out there to look for Casey was out there. So everyone was searching for the boy who was described as 25 pounds, 28 inches tall, with blonde hair and brown eyes. And as the grandmother said, he was wearing a black jacket and jeans. So people searched all through Tuesday, and unfortunately, they could not find Casey. And at the end of the night, everybody had to go home, and his fate was left unknown. And everybody was worried at this point in time because the weather, with it being this time of year, is not good. It's cold, it's rainy, it's wet, it's windy. It's not the type of environment that anybody would want to be in, especially a 3-year-old by himself. So the next day, on Wednesday, all of the search efforts resumed again. The drones were out, the dogs were out, the people were out, the helicopters were out, and everybody was searching for Casey. And once again, they searched all day until at the end of the night, everybody who wasn't a professional search and rescue worker was sent home just because the weather was really, really bad. Once again, it was cold, it was wet, it was rainy, it was windy. And this was now Casey's second night of being missing by himself in these horrific weather conditions. Then came the day of January 24th of 2019. The search and rescue teams were once again out looking for Casey. Full forces were out. They wanted to try to find this boy, and they were really hoping to find him alive. And finally, one of the volunteers heard a little boy crying out. And when he went closer to the cry, he found Casey, and Casey was alive. Casey was cold, and Casey was wet, and he was shivering, and he was scared, and he was caught up in some sticker bushes, so he couldn't really move. He was just stuck where he was at. And the rescuers had to wade through water that was almost waist deep to get to him, but they did. They got to Casey, and Casey was alive. So at this point, Casey was returned to the family, who obviously were so ecstatic to find out about this. Along with a lot of people, because this case was really big and it got a lot of national attention. So people everywhere were so happy to hear that Casey Hathaway was found alive and safe. And he went into the hospital that night, obviously just to check him over because he had been in these really adverse weather conditions, and he was okay. He had some scrapes and some bruises, and they had to warm him up, but all in all, Casey was okay. The part that really confuses a lot of people is how Casey just physically survived this in general, because the weather itself was so bad that full-grown people could have gotten hypothermia. So a 3-year-old being out there by himself and not really having the knowledge of how to build any sort of shelter or anything to keep him warm, it was obviously a fantastic thing that he survived, but it just left a lot of people wondering how he survived. And when the family asked Casey about this, he actually reported that he had a bear friend in the woods who he stayed with while he was gone. And Casey was known to watch a show called Masha and the Bear, which is a show about a little girl who lives in the woods with a bear. I'm actually pretty familiar with this show. It's something that my kids watch. So they think that maybe this whole thing was just an imaginative bear, and you know, that's just kind of what he needed to get through this, was to have this imaginary friend, and that's what kept him safe. However, other people think that maybe he was actually with a bear, and maybe some sort of mama bear out there noticed a little baby who needed help and snuggled up with Casey at nighttime and kept him warm, and that's actually how he survived this. Or that it could have been an animal that Casey thought was a bear, but it could have been a cat or something. Nobody's really sure. And it's just interesting because obviously Casey's 3, so he's not going to have a huge grasp of what happened to him or a huge understanding of what he went through. So it just leaves a lot of people wondering how he survived this. And then when his only answer is, "I was with a bear," it just leaves people with a lot more questions than there are answers. But at this point, I don't think anybody really cares. I think however he stayed alive, everyone's just thankful that he did. And I think ultimately that's just the takeaway of this. And I was so happy to hear that he was found alive, and that this was the video that I got to make for this case instead of something with a horrific ending. And it is important to point out that the police do not believe there's any foul play in this at all. They think that Casey simply walked away while he was playing. He just wandered away, he got lost, he didn't know how to get home, and that's all that happened. So that is it for that case. I know it's a little bit shorter, but it was just a really, really exciting ending to this, so I wanted to make sure I could share it with you guys and show you guys that I am capable of doing some cases that do have happy endings and not just dark subject matter all of the time. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really, really appreciate it. And until next time, I love you all very much, and we will touch base soon. Bye.